One of the things that I've heard about as I talk to some of the franchise experts throughout the industry is the surprise of post-COVID. Nobody saw this coming, where franchising was going to have like this new resurgence of growth. Nobody saw this coming. Why do you think there's been so much of a gravitational pull towards people wanting to own a franchise now versus before the COVID?
That's an awesome question. And I'll just give you obviously my perspective on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people I don't consider myself a franchise expert, but I've got all this useless knowledge up here about franchising, and people always say, "God, that was very helpful." But from my vantage point, Frank, it just seems to me that a lot of people either decided that during COVID, they were either working from home or they didn't have to do that long commute anymore. And they're like, gosh, I should really, kind of be my own boss. I should own my own business. Or people, they've always thought about doing it, but because of COVID, I think it really kind of helped people really kind of take that leap. Whereas in the past, they may have kind of held back a little bit. And I think that's where we've seen a huge uptick. And I've heard this at just about every meeting I've been to this fall, that it's a lot more expensive to get access to money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that is starting to kind of cause some issues out there, especially for that first-time potential franchisee. The unique thing about franchising is, and even during the Great Recession of the mid to late 2000s, where as an association, we were always keeping our head about 2% above where my peers at other associations that are reliant on just one industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it could just be the restaurant industry or the hotel industry or the retail industry. But, of course, we have people in those verticals that happen to franchise, but where we even see growth even today is with that multi-unit franchisee, or even that stellar franchisee who's looking to diversify and either add additional units under their existing brand. But now there's that new term that came up in the past year, at least for me, MUMBO, multi-unit, multi-branded operator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these folks have a great relationship with their banks, and they're able to get access to capital and expand and grow. So I think even right now, though, I've been hearing from my dev friends that it's taking a lot longer to close on some deals with people in their pipeline because it costs more to get that access to money, right?
Right. You get them across the finish line.
Exactly. But there's still ongoing growth within those folks that are already existing franchisees, again, wanting to expand, into either other markets, whether it's going from food to non-food,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm starting to see a lot of that now because of, various issues, whether it's in California with the FAST Act or just, NLRB and other things. But no matter what, at least in my tenure, even though things might slow down a little bit, there is always still continued growth, whether it's on the FranDev side or with people entering into franchising as franchisees, or even people wanting to franchise their business as well. And that's always ongoing.
I kind of feel like we're in this new golden age. We're going to look back and say this period of time was a golden age in franchising again. At the same time, I also, I believe in the phrase, nothing is ever as good as it seems and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. So let's talk about,
Amen.
Let's talk about the flip side of this potential. We're in this golden age that our model is also potentially being threatened. So
100%.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on, and we should expand, what exactly do I mean by the threat of our model?
Exactly. And listen, excellent question. And I will say, when I came on board here at IFA, we had like less than 1,000 people attending our annual convention. We had less than 1,000 franchisor members. And really from late 1999, almost continuously up through the Great Recession, really, franchising just jumped. We reached 1,000 plus members. We had well over 1,000 people attending. Every year, the numbers kept going up across the board, every year.
Mm-hmm.
Even to this day, they keep going up. But one thing that we noticed in our board, we are, I always like to say we're the stewards of the organization. IFA belongs to its dues paying members. We are a nonprofit a trade association. Without getting into too much detail, but we're a 501c6 because we are lobbying, lobby shop, but we also have a 501c3 component, which is the IFA Foundation. But we are a nonprofit organization. But the business model has been under more of a direct threat in the past 10 years than it has, in the past 60 years. And really that's because, again, the lawmakers, right? Whether it's federal, state, or regulatory side, people don't understand franchising. They don't understand that franchisees are owner operators. They are responsible for hiring and firing people to the extent, setting wages for their employees. They are running that business. And, it's funny because just this past weekend was Shop Local Businesses. And, that's all sponsored by American Express, right?
Right.
We've been trying for years to get them to recognize that franchisees are small business people, that they are local to the community.
Totally.
And they just, unfortunately, that they don't recognize that. And it's unfortunate because we all know that the majority of franchisees out there are mom and pops, and they live in the community. They sponsor the little league teams. Their kids go to school with my kids, with their, they are part of that local community across the country. And at the end of the day, so many folks in franchising who have entered into franchising, they've all worked in corporate America, let's say, or they're coming out of, serving our country. And of course we have our VetFran program, and our members provide benefits to qualified veterans to enter into franchising, whether it's reducing the franchise fee or not including the franchise fee at all for qualified veterans. But it's a great way, again, to get people involved into owning their own business, being their own bosses. But again, you're going into business for yourself, but not by yourself. That's the power of the franchise model. You've got not only the support of the franchisor and the proven system that they've created, but you have the support of all the other franchisees in the system, and you're not going it alone. Yeah, you could open up your own pizza shop. Chances are you may or may not be as successful had you invested in a franchise concept. And again, it's because you're investing in a proven system. That founder, they did all the homework, and they had the ups and downs with with the success or the failures, what worked, what didn't work. And then they fine-tuned it and decided, to grow and expand using someone else's capital. And that's why they enter into franchising. Yes, as a franchisor, you still control, the secret sauce, you control the brand, and the franchisee has to follow the rules.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that franchisee is the owner operator of that business for as long as the agreement, whether it's 10 years, let's say. But at the end of the day, really, from my vantage point, from what I've seen, is you've got the unions, primarily the SEIU, the Service Employees Union, and they're smart. I mean, they have a heck of a lot more money than we do, but their coffers are starting to dwindle, and they are going after the gig economy. So Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, but the way they've crafted their message and the legislation that they've been able to get folks to introduce on their behalf pulls in the business format franchise model. And of course, they're going after kind of the low-hanging fruit, whether it's McDonald's, but their plans are to go after not just the restaurant segment, but all the other segments within franchising. So we have to stay 3 or 4 steps ahead. And obviously, if you look at California, and that's where they set their sights on first, and we were able to go in there. It could have been extremely costly after the FAST Act was introduced and signed, but we were able to collect enough signatures to get it to the in California, they have the proposition, where basically it would have been taken to the voters, but then we would have had to have spent millions of dollars basically running ads promoting why people should or should not vote for, whatever the prop would have been, prop whatever. And there would have been no guarantee that we would have succeeded. At the end of the day, a lot of deals were made, and we were able to get the joint employer piece removed from that. And again, the joint employer is, everybody thinks that, basically it would turn franchisees almost into middle managers, because franchisors would be considered joint employers with their franchisees. And we know, as a franchisor, you are not involved in anything having to do with HR related to your franchisees. It's up to your franchisee to find health insurance for them, their families, or even their employees. It's up to them to provide various benefits for their employees. The franchisor has nothing to do with that. If joint employer were to pass, and now the NLRB, they came out with their ruling, so we are encouraging everybody, if they haven't done it, to make sure, and we have all of this within IFA. It's very simple, and I could share this with you after the fact, but we're encouraging our members through our Franchise Action Network, our grassroots lobbying. It's all on the IFA website to, basically you just plug in your zip code where you live, and then it generates a letter directly to your member of Congress, both on the House and Senate side. We have to let them know that the business format franchise model is not broken, and franchisors, and it takes effect December 26th. But, listen, we filed suit. The SEIU has filed suit. I believe, and I'm not an attorney, but it's my understanding that this will probably end up with the Supreme Court at some point. But it's just, in my eyes, this is such a colossal waste of time, because franchising, as we all know, yes, not every concept is stellar. There's issues within franchising. Not every franchisee is successful. Not every franchisor is successful. But at the end of the day, I like to think the majority of IFA members, they're expected to abide by and adhere to the IFA Code of Ethics. And I like to think that our members are continually being educated through IFA on how to be the best franchisor, how to be the best franchisee, how to be the best supplier, on best practices, and how to continually drive and steer your ship in the right direction. But there's always going to be issues, whether it's franchise or in any other industry, where things aren't always perfect, right? But I like to think that at the end of the day, the majority of the folks involved in franchising are stellar and are always trying to do the right thing. We are always having to educate everybody on the business model, and that it's a huge cog in the economic wheel within the U.S. economy. Not only does it provide jobs, but it provides opportunities for people who never would have dreamed of owning their own business and realizing the American dream through franchising. Unfortunately, because it's been under more of a direct threat in the past 10 years, we are having to, and we are a small trade association. With our board, we've had to review, and our board reviewed, debated, discussed, and approved a restructuring of our dues model. So our our legacy brands, or what I refer to as the big boys and girls, are bearing more of a brunt of the cost of protecting the business model, whereas our startup and emerging brands, and as folks work their way up through the maturity ladder, aren't having to bear the brunt of it as much. Those are the folks that are entering into franchising really for the enhancement and the promotion that we provide. They want to learn how to be the best franchisor. They want to learn everything they need to know to be a successful franchisor. And they also want to, understand, how do we get leads? How do we find the best leads? How do we become royalty sufficient? And, these are things that through IFA and through our Certified Franchise Executive Program, through receiving our magazine, Franchising World, or our newsletters, that, our members are continually educating themselves on everything that they need to know to continue to be successful as a franchisor, or even as a franchisee, or again, as a supplier, what it means to do business in the franchise space. Even within our supplier membership, and again, I'm the liaison to the supplier board and the supplier board's executive committee, but our members, our franchisor and franchisee members, like to do business with people who support the association, but they also like to do business with people who understand franchising and understand the model and the relationship, because it helps that vendor, that supplier, work with the franchisor and their franchisee, regardless of what that supplier's widget is, whether they're wanting to do business just with the franchisor or just with the franchisee. If they understand franchising, it just makes things a lot easier. And then in many cases, they help to continually educate and provide that franchise system and their franchisees with thought leadership at the end of the day, because that's what it's all about within franchising. And again, whether you're a franchisor or franchisee or supplier, within our membership, our members are always giving back to people coming up the ladder behind them, like I said earlier. And it's all about thought leadership, and people love to just continually educate, as you do now, Frank. I mean,
yeah.
you're one of those folks now who are giving back because franchising has been very good to you and continues to be good to you. And you're now helping educate all those folks. And I tell people all the time who are entering into franchising, I'm like, you'll be the chair of IFA someday. How could I be? Because we can only grow and thrive if we have stellar volunteer leaders. And I'm always trying to cultivate volunteer leaders within our membership, because that's how we continue to grow and thrive. We have to have those volunteer leaders. And if we don't, then the trade association, as we know, it's dead.
Right.
It won't continue to grow. When I came here and was working in government relations, within about a week's time, I realized I'm going to be extremely bored. All we focused on was franchise relationship legislation. There was nothing at the federal side. Iowa had happened. We were in the process of trying to get it amended, which we did. But then, we did have a federal bill. But then as I moved over to membership, things started just happening more and more and more. And we are really focused more heavily on government relations now, because we have to be, and our members need us to be. And that is the primary focus, is to continually protect the model, but we are also continually educating members. As IFA has matured and evolved over the years, we are not directly in the Fran Dev business. We are not a broker network. We have broker networks as members. We have some individual brokers who are members, but we do indirectly promote franchising day in, day out. We promote our members on our website. We're constantly getting unique individual visitors each day and each month to our website. We still have a very long-standing relationship with the folks that produce the expos that we directly sponsor, and it's MFE Expositions, and there's 4 shows coming up in 2024, and our members receive a discount to exhibit at these shows. It's funny, as long as I've been here, people are like, oh, expos are dying. Now, early on, it was because,
the portals.
When Al Gore invented the World Wide Web, and everybody was like, oh my God, websites are going to destroy franchise expos. Well, listen, there's a lot of web portals out there. Franchise.org is a web portal.
Right.
And even COVID kind of hit the pause button on expos, and we're still coming out of that a little bit, but expos are still a great way for people to find a lead, especially with emerging brands. It's kind of like they're coming out. It's like, yes, we are a new franchisor on the block, and it's still an important place to grow. But a lot of folks are using brokers now, and that's a whole nother issue out there, because the FTC was looking at regulating that. But now it's my understanding that they're taking a step back, because they don't, even though they brought this issue to the table, they're taking a step back now, because I guess, looking at it from a consumer standpoint, they're not getting a lot of complaints from consumers, but that's still kind of an ongoing issue. And even within franchising, our members, franchisors, they kind of have a love-hate relationship with the brokers or with these franchise sales organizations, the FSOs. But yet it's helped so many of our members get up to over 100 units, so they will keep them, on board as kind of like a, even though they still have their in-house Fran Dev team, they will still utilize the broker networks, or the referral networks, as they're kind of referred to today. And people are still getting a lot of deals out of the, the referral networks and the brokers that play with them. I jokingly tell people, I'm glad I'm not on the government relations team now. I'd be really busy. I'd love, it would be challenging and fun, but it's constantly ongoing now. And we have a stellar team here, led by Mike Lehman, and he's got a lot of folks that have been here for a long time. We've added some new folks, but we also have a very active political action committee. And, at the end of the day, democracy is democracy, but I hate to say it, we are always contributing to both sides of the aisle. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a nonpartisan organization, but I always like to say that, like with any business group, not that we lean to the right or we don't lean to the right, but we have to at least contribute to folks on both sides of the aisle, because we want to make sure that when it comes time for a vote in Congress, that we have people on both sides. I only contribute $1 a day to our PAC because we have such a powerful PAC. That's why we were able to get, the PPP funds and the CARES Act taken care of. And we were able to get franchising written in, into that legislation, because we have a seat at the table. But I hate to say it, we have to buy that seat at the table at the end of the day. But that's how our great democracy works here in the United States, right? I say that jokingly, but you know what I mean.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.